So why is Double Demons both a dating sim and a Magic Combat uh, Spirit World fighting game? Well, it comes back to some of the challenges that face the dating sim dialogue choice genre, which is that there's a weird personal component that isn't existing with other games. So with a like first person shooter, um, you can have level progressions with, maybe the number of kills you get. You can have like a kill death assists number that you're proud of, and you could still lose the game. With visual novels or dating sims, you ought a lot of times don't have that separation. You're really, if you're, playing skillfully or playing well, you are getting to whatever the best possible ending, whether that's, a kiss, making out, or whatever. Um, and there's no way to be like, hey, you talked to her really good, but she still hates you. There's no kill, there's no like high, like, death match kill count versus like, the other team wins by killing your base or something that exists yet. So I was exploring that idea, and one thing that I realized is that, yeah, there should be some sort of separate counter that tracks the types of interactions that you're having. And it could be any type of interaction that you're after. Because it's a social interaction, it's not um, something that should be taken for granted that all players will want all girls to be attracted to them. And so there's no need to, make that the only type of kill or, assist. You could think of it that way. So I started to realize, okay, what would be a good application of an XP gain system? Well, if there's a, sort of secret underworld, similar in some ways to Harry Potter style, where, there's just like a secret society of people who can go to the spirit world and fight monsters, then that would give the players an avenue to, in a sense, spend their skill points or see their progression in different dating elements paying off in some sort of a way. So, you talk to girls, and if you're progressing, in a direct way, like you get them to go out with you, maybe that's, gives you a boost in one, component of your skill tree. Whereas maybe even getting rejected, or in other words, having girls be, disgusted or just, not attracted to you, could build a skill tree in another sector. And I think there's a lot of logical associations you could make there. You could have it so that the more girls you get to respect slash be attracted to you, the greater your damage, or your range, or maybe the speed at which your projectiles move when you cast them in the spirit world. And then you could have, okay, the more you get girls to be friendly with you, maybe that increases your base health or base mana or your regen rate. And then you could do similar skill trees for the opposite. You could say, oh, the more you make girls dislike you in a friendship way, that could be tied to armor, which again, there's really fun logical associations you can make here. Armor, or, magic resistance. So, basically the ability to take damage, isn't that kind of fun? And with girls being unattracted to you, maybe there's like a vengeful, or, you know, um, uh, sacrificial element. So maybe it, boosts your ability to heal others, or to, maybe create debuffs to cripple the enemy would make more sense there. Things like that, or crit, something more of like a rogue type stat could be tied to that. So anyways, once you create all these associations, you do a good thing and a bad thing. So the good thing is you've confused the connection between what you would think is a traditional progression in the dating sim elements. Okay, I want to get this girl to like me is kind of your baseline assumption of what the character you're playing wants. What I'm after is to really encourage the player to consider many different play styles and have that work in the game. So One way you do that is have it connected in this way. So if the player, maybe they are going after a girl, who they, their personality or their dialogue, their written options that they've said to the player are appealing so far, but they're still new to the game and they go for a slightly riskier attempt. Maybe they go for a handhold, or they invite them out for, to grab coffee, before school, or ice cream at some point after class, and then get rejected. And the way the rejection system works is pretty unforgiving. Your attraction level is dropped like all the way to zero, or at least half is taken away if you find a way to save face in various kind of you can't recover fully, but you can mitigate the damage. Anyways, you just begin rejected. And so in most games, that would be a game over moment. That would be comparable to a boss fight where you're like, oh, I didn't win, I should play again. Maybe I'll face the boss later, because it's got a lot of open world elements. So you didn't have to ask her out then. That's not something that I want to force on the player, because you don't get to have the full extent of creative strategy with this if you can't choose your timing for the most important moves. And definitely asking a girl out or going for a handhold or a kiss is definitely, that's like going, going for like a 1v5 moment. That's putting all your cards on the table. Anyways, once you separate that, okay, it introduces some confusion, which is a bit of a negative. The player has to figure out, am I this character, or am I myself trying to figure out who I would want to be in this world? So that could be a little disassociating and less immersive, but it encourages players to pursue the full extent of their strategy. It's like, okay, well, now that I'm, maybe not too closely linked to the player, or at least not too closely linked with what I think the player character would want, I, the gamer, am deciding things, maybe I'll experiment with, more relationship combinations. And then they'll see, oh, even though, so going back to the situation of being rejected by a girl that you were initially going after, oh, even though I got rejected and some bars went down, I actually gained a stat in another area. Oh, interesting. That stat builds towards, crit chance, or double damage when striking from behind. I, had been playing a different style in the Magic world, but that might be fun. So maybe instead of, resetting the game and making sure that that girl never rejected you, you might actually move forward and see it as maybe not a full positive, but like a mixed bag. You're like, okay, let's see how this plays out a little bit longer. And, maybe I'll still reset, or maybe not. So anyways, that's the kind of interactions you give if you can have some sort of parallel system to associate variable changes. So it's not necessarily everything is positive. When you get one girl to reject you, or that when that happens, there is a status or reputation effect where it will, if that happens a lot, then it will slowly become harder overall to any social groups affected by those people to get them attracted to you. It's going to drop their capacity to build respect or attraction for you. So you have to think about that carefully. You could maybe not easily, but quickly end up in a situation where it's going to be hard to backtrack, moving forward through the game. You can always load a save and chart a different path, but you'll be getting some of those rewards in the spirit world for different types of damage or, utility buffs, which I think will make the player feel a lot more free to pursue more complicated strategies. And it allows the writers to write really powerful and, I think, true to real life experiences when it comes to those awkward and really difficult and soul crushing moments of, is she going to say yes? Is she going to say no? And in some ways, you lower the stakes in a game when it'll just be over afterwards. When okay, well, I'm just gonna do the ask her out option, and then if that doesn't work out, I'll just reload the save and not do that. It's tough to avoid the lowering of stakes there. And that's part of what's great about games is you can take the wild choices that you could agonize over for weeks, months, years in real life. So I have no problem with that. But by attaching this basically entire second game in parallel where you're living a double life, high school student by day and a magic warrior, fighting monsters and teaming up with a special group of friends that are also in the spirit world by night. Because you've got that parallel, it gives the player just a bit of a nudge to kind of let things play out. And in that way, I think you're really going to get a stronger, at least capability for emotional experiences with the high highs and the low lows. The girl might say, oh, I see us, more as friends and, less as, dating. That hits way harder. And you can have conversations come up later where, maybe you haven't let it go. You still think that there's a chance that she would be into you and that she'll change her mind, which is a thing that happens in real life. It's rare, but it does happen. And so maybe you have, more conversations about that where she, is explaining, well, maybe she did have feelings for you, but, she's confused by other things going on, or, maybe she begins to appreciate things about you that she took for granted. There's a lot of really powerful and I think really true to real life things that happen when you allow players to kind of play past what would be the game over in kind of your traditional dialogue exchange. There's very few games where you have a failure of dialogue exchange and it doesn't really immediately lead to a reboot of a save or of the game entirely. So that's why there's a whole second part of the game. I am also really excited about the way the magic system works. It's tied in with the whole modern world in that you defeat monsters in order to boost not just your ability to use magical powers, but actually your agency, your willpower, your volition to do things. The modern world in this game is suffering from a crisis of of willpower. So 30% of the population before the game starts has moved into this terrible stage 3 low willpower mode where they can't, get out of bed or eat or drink without the assistance of a whole like AI program. So where this all fits in together is you're reinforcing the idea that you have to decide what you're going to do. And it's really you creating a new person in this player character's life. And I hope, again, that's a little bit of a double-edged sword. I want the player to feel encouraged to make those creative choices, to sit in some negative interactions, if they want to, if they maybe being rejected, and this certainly is another thing that happens in real life. Sometimes being rejected is enough to shatter the illusion or the dream that you had or the fantasy that you had about someone. And the act of being rejected gets you to move on. Certainly it's a type of closure for some people. And I want to encourage that as, a way to play the game. You can be yourself. You can choose every dialogue option that is the closest to what you would say, what you would do with this person. And then, take your shot, roll your dice. And maybe you can watch the numbers, but the numbers are never a guarantee of what's going to happen. There's no random chance, but there is a personality writers based snapping. So even if you have high values, depending on who that AI character is, there's more to it. So you can come in with a reasonably high confidence, even from the clear feedback that exists in this game, and still, feel the anxiety of taking a chance. So you can be yourself as close as possible, as close as the game lets you, and then ask the girl out however you would do it, whether it's going for a handhold or directly, asking her out on a date. And then you can accept the result. You can say, okay, if she'll go out with me, then she will. If she won't, she won't. And I'm not going to play the mind games. And I think that's also a really beautiful controversy and confusion in the dating world, in the culture of dating. Do you want to, work your hardest to sell yourself, or to, some people would say, to be your best self. Other people's would be to say to be your, fake self, to pump yourself up more than you actually are. And having players really interact with, okay, I did get rejected. Am I going to load the save and try to be a different person? Or am I going to load the save and try to wait longer until she, gets to know me better? Or am I going to say, you know what, she didn't want me. In a sense, I'm going to respect that. In another sense, I am less interested in her. Maybe I'll play another day or two in game and see if I want to pursue other things. You don't even have to be pursuing girls in the game to progress. I think, you're going to miss out on certain stats no matter what you go after. You could go after a run in which you're specifically trying to get everyone to hate you, which would cause a very unstable, allotment of your stats and your skill tree. But that could be fun, and that could, lead to conversational exchanges that are very bracing. That, maybe you're really speaking your mind. With that level of conflict, there's probably nothing that you're not saying that you want to say that pops up as an option. So that might be very freeing, and you might prompt the kind of conflict that brings relationships to a very deep level, even if they're negative. So I think that's really cool too. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that's why the game scope has blown up, because I wanted, these game states to be able to sustain. I wanted, something really positive or something really negative to happen, and the game to continue like it would in real life. You have to see the girl the next day in class, even though, the day before you called her on the phone and tried to ask her out, or after school, you are going to have to face her again, unless you can skip school, which I'd like to introduce maybe halfway through the game, the ability to do that, and consequences that go along with that. But anyways, in many situations, you ask a girl out, she says no, you still have to face her, you still have to be around her a lot, if you're going to the same high school. And that's not a situation that I think everyone will pursue in the game. I think a lot of people are like, okay, I get it. I got rejected. I don't, I don't need to torture myself further. Um, but there's something powerful there. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I'll probably continue another topic on this soon, but have a good day. Thank you.